Live Boxing.
So welcome to 5 Live Boxing at the start of another big fight week. What a run, what a year. On Saturday at Wembley, and I can see Wembley from where I'm recording this, Katie Taylor is back in the ring. She defends her 4 lightweight world titles, for the 7th time, by the way, against the unbeaten Argentinian Karen Elizabeth Carabajal. It's the first fight since Taylor beat Amanda Serrano on that historic and monumental and unforgettable night back at Madison Square Garden in April. What a night that was. Also, I travelled to North London, to Tottenham Hotspur's stadium, and it's a great stadium, okay, I'll get that out, to talk to both Frank Warren and Dereck Delboy Chisora about the WBC light heavyweight title fight against Tyson Fury. He doesn't speak to me, and that's on December the 3rd. Barry Jones will join me in a moment. I'm Steve Bunce, and this is 5 Live Boxing. So I went to see Katie Taylor at her hotel near Wembley. Her latest fight, her 22nd, is on Saturday. She was relaxed, focused, humble. She was, well, to be honest with you, that's just Katie Taylor. And I asked her about her unbelievable spine-tingling ring walk back in April when she fought Serrano in the first fight where women were paid $1 million, an official sellout at the Garden. And when Katie came out, she was in no rush. It was a ring walk like no other ring walk I can remember. And I asked her when she realised that that walk was going to be special.
I think it was just in the dressing room really before the fight, and my coach Ross and my manager Brian and Tomas were just all saying you just soak it in when you walk out, and that's exactly what I did do. I was just soaking it all in. The atmosphere was just electric, and between the Irish fans and the Puerto Rican fans, it was just such a special night. But this is something that I worked hard towards my whole career, and here I was headlining Madison Square Garden, the first time in women's boxing history where we actually headlined a show in MSG, the most iconic venue in boxing history, and I just wanted to take my time, soak it in, and enjoy the atmosphere, and it was probably the longest ring walk in history, but it was great, yeah.
It was like something from wrestling in the 80s. Yeah. There was one point where you just stood there, you had your gloves on your legs, and you're looking, you're literally breathing it in and closing your eyes. I mean, it's an amazing emotional walk. For me, watching it, was it emotional for you, or are you just loving it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess when I'm looking back at it myself, I can see really, how iconic that ring walk actually was. But when you're there yourself, you're obviously just focused on the fight as well as soaking everything in. I obviously had to step into the ring and actually produce a great performance as well. But in that moment, I was just looking at all the Irish flags around, looking at the amount of people who actually travelled over for this fight. I think apparently like over 6,000 Irish people actually travelled over to actually support me on that night. And for me, that's just something very, very special, and just so grateful for all the support. And that performance was as much for those people as it was for me.
Yeah, and it looked like that. Have you watched the fight back? And is that something you do, Katie? Do you sit down, cup of tea, couple of biscuits, feet up, and watch it? Have you done that since then?
Yeah, I have actually, and great fight. What can I say? It was definitely a great fight. It was. I think it actually exceeded everybody's expectations.
Yeah, I think it did.
I think everyone was saying it was going to be a fight of the year contender, and it turned out to be the case.
And did you know from the very... obviously we knew it was going to be a good fight. People were expected to be a good fight. Perhaps not as good as it was. As you say, it exceeded. But when did you realise after the first bell, this is going to be as good as anyone's ever thought? Did you know it was going to be that good, that hard, that brilliant from the very first bell?
I don't think I'm really thinking of that when the bell goes. I'm just kind of focused on what I have to do during each round. But obviously, even during the actual rounds, at some stages I couldn't even hear the bell ringing because it was so loud.
About 5 times that happened.
Yeah, seriously, yeah. So even that itself, that's how loud the crowd actually was. But obviously, I knew when the final bell went, it was something very, very special, and We were saying beforehand, before that fight happened, when you're thinking of Madison Square Garden, you're thinking of the likes of Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier, but now it's amazing that myself and Amanda Serrano's name is on that list as well.
And it is, and your names are on that list. Before that fight, there'd been great amateur stuff, obviously. There'd been fantastic professional stuff. The 2 fights with Delphine Persoon, especially the first one in the same venue, the rematch with Natasha Jonas. I mean, these are all good fights. Take away Serrano, they're all really, really good fights. When you, over the last 5 or 6 months since that night, have you actually sat down and started to think about the impression you've left on boxing? Because you've always been really straight and really humble, and that's one of the things that people love about you. So you're not out there screaming, I'm the greatest, knocking down doors and windows. You just get on with business. But have you allowed yourself in this last 5 or 6 months to actually sit back and go, whew, I've done it. That was me. What a run it's been. Have you allowed yourself a little bit of self-praise?
I don't.
You're not good at that. Yeah. I know, and you should be. But have you allowed yourself just a little bit?
I don't think I'm the type of person, honestly, to do stuff like that, to be honest. I think maybe after I retire from boxing, maybe I'll look back and say, gosh, what an amazing journey it was. But right now, I'm just thinking I just have to improve. I have to get better. I have to keep winning. I have to go from strength to strength, really. And there's definitely stuff I need to improve on, and I need to get better on, and that's the sort of stuff I'm probably thinking, that to be quite honest. But I am very, very grateful that these last few years of my professional career have been the most amazing part of my whole career, both as a pro and an amateur, and having a chance to box in these big stadiums and having a chance to actually have an impact on the next generation, for me, is absolutely everything.
Well, if there was ever a proof positive that you're having an impact on the next generation, just this last weekend, European Women's Championships finished in Montenegro. Probably one of the only countries you've never fought in, or you might have even fought there, because you've probably fought in about 60 countries, haven't you, over the years?
Probably, yeah. But I don't think I have boxed in Montenegro.
There we go. Well, the Irish team came back with 7 medals, 3 golds, 2 silver, 2 bronzes, and many of that team you would know. I mean, some of them you'd know very well, and some that you would half know. Amy Broadhurst got a gold. Harrington got another gold to make it this ridiculous. So there's your legacy. It's living now. It's not going to be in 5 years or 10 years. Yeah. They're there now. Yeah,
it's amazing, and I feel like the women's team right now are nearly turned into the Cuban national team
from the 70s. We can't beat them.
Yeah, it's amazing, and that to me is absolutely incredible. Like we're so consistent in every single competition right now. We're one of the top nations right now, and these young girls coming up are a force to be reckoned with, basically, and it's absolutely incredible. When I was boxing on the amateur team, for the most part, I was the only one that was actually coming home with medals from the women's team. And now we have a full squad of potential medalists in every single competition, and it's just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, those are Cuban stats. To get 7 medals, I think, from 10 weights is just, I mean, that's proper Cuban or the Soviet Union in the 60s.
Yeah,
you know, that type of stuff.
Yeah, we've turned into the Cuban national team, basically.
Nothing wrong with that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, we've got Carvajal on Saturday at Wembley. Unbeaten Argentinian, everything to gain for it. One of those dangerous fighter in the sense that she has absolutely nothing to lose. And the terrible thing is people expect you just to win comfortably, which is a terrible sort of pressure, isn't it, in a bizarre way? Yeah, I mean,
it's nothing new to me, I guess. I think for any one of my mandatories, it's always been a case where people are expecting to blow the girl out, but it's...
Or win all 10 rounds.
Yeah, exactly, but these fights are obviously a lot more difficult than what it looks like. But I'm looking forward to stepping in there again and producing a great performance and another chance to actually fight in front and headline a big show, which is amazing. And I'm just excited to step back in there.
No, it's not quite a homecoming. Okay, but it's got a kind of homecoming feel to it. And I've said that before, and I get unbelievable pelters non-stop on social media saying, Buncey, she's not British, she's not English, she's not from London, she's not. And I know that, but it's kind of a homecoming. Can we say at least it's kind of a homecoming?
Yeah, absolutely, and especially since the fact there's a couple of Irish fighters on the card as well. Gary Cully's on the card. Keevan was supposed to be on the card, but I think he had to pull out due to an injury, unfortunately. But it's going to be a great night for Irish boxing for sure, and I can't wait for it.
Moving forward, Katie, because we've inevitably got to move forward. There are a lot of girls in the weights above, the weights below, the same weight as you, less experienced, seasoned. I mean, there's an awful lot of people calling your name over about a 10-pound weight difference. You're not a person that ever calls people's names, but is there such a thing, and I was talking about this on the radio last week, is there such a thing in Katie Taylor's head of a wish list of your next 2 or 3 or 4 fights? Do you allow yourself to put them together?
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, I still think the biggest fight out there for me is Amanda Serrano rematch. I think that's absolutely huge.
Yeah, so do I.
And I think, I mean, imagine how big the rematch would actually be, considering how big the first fight was. I think that's absolutely huge. There's obviously a lot of girls like Alicia Baumgartner who just beat Michaela Meyer. Those two girls are great opponents.
Both got your name on their lips.
Exactly, yeah. And obviously the girls above as well, Chantal Cameron. These kind of girls, I'm very, very willing and happy to step into any of those girls. But for me, I think the biggest name out there still is Amanda Serrano, and to get that rematch will be absolutely incredible.
Because there were talks after the first fight in April. Yeah. There were talks, and in fact, I interviewed you in the ring, and you said, I'd love to do it in Croke Park, in Dublin, in September. And there were talks that was ongoing. It fell out of bed. Could you have done that? I mean, the way your body would your body have allowed you to have fought in late September?
Yeah, I think we were ready and willing to step back in with an immediate rematch in September in Croke Park. But unfortunately, it did fall through. They wanted to have another couple of fights, I guess, before stepping back in for a rematch. So I do still think that it will happen someday, but yeah, we'll see what happens, I guess. Yeah.
And I've got to ask you this, Katie. I said that you perform a magic trick after your fight. Or maybe it's because people have respect for you, they don't chase you. Where'd you go? No, hand on heart, where were you in May and June and July? No one seems to know where you are. I love that. No, I'm being honest. Like Lennox Lewis used to fight, okay? Yeah. He'd invite us to his suite on the Sunday. He would have drunk a bottle of brandy. He'd sit with us. He'd have a laugh. We'd leave the room and boom, kapow, he'd vanish for 3 months. We didn't know if he was in Jamaica, New York, hand on heart, I'm asking you. I have no idea where you are. I mean, in June, where were you in June or July? I mean, if you don't want to tell me, you don't have to tell me. But people don't know where you are. No good just laughing. You just vanish.
I know the people expect me to publicise everything about my life.
Absolutely, yeah. But, I know you don't do that, but you just vanish at the same time.
Yeah.
Have you got a secret island somewhere? You just, I mean, where are you? If you don't want to say it, it's okay. No. But I'm intrigued. What did Katie Taylor do in June, July, and August?
I actually live a very, very simple life. To be honest, Steve, I don't really do too much in between fights. I guess. I'm just back in I have my home in Connecticut, where I obviously train alongside my coach Ross, and I have all the guys in the gym there as well. And I'm pretty much back in the gym there within a few days of the actual fight. I had my family over with me for a couple of weeks during that month as well, just kind of celebrating the win and just soaking up time with them. And then for another few weeks I'm back home in Ireland, just soaking time up with them back home as well. So between Ireland and Connecticut, I was back and forth between the two places, staying in the gym, keeping fit.
So that's it.
And that's pretty much it.
So it is actually you just do the same stuff that Lennox does. You just do private stuff.
I live a very, very boring life.
Yeah. So there's no sort of hiring yachts and cruising around and collecting crazy people at each port like Conor McGregor or anything like that. You just live a simple.
I wish I had that much money to do that sort of thing, but no, I don't.
You wouldn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
Katie, that's not.
Yeah.
I don't see that. And I've got to ask you a final question. Obviously, you weren't there because you were, in camp, but we had a fantastic night of boxing at the O2 recently.
Yeah.
The year started with you and Amanda, massive fights for women. Great year for women's boxing across the globe, and we had two massive back-to-back world title fights there. Michaela Mayer and Alicia Baumgardner was good, but then I think Savannah Marshall and Claressa Shields. I don't know about you, but to me, that was even better than I expected. A bit like you and Serrano, which I knew would be good. I didn't know it'd be that good. Yeah. And I thought the Shields and Marshall was just a great spectacle.
An amazing showcase by both girls. Both of them showed so much heart and grit. And I guess Claressa was just a bit too athletic and too fast for Savannah. But just an amazing showcase from both women, really. And two incredible fighters, and who put it all on the line on the night. And just an amazing night. Yeah.
And finally, can you remember when you're doing your medicals and you're queuing for breakfast in different places, not Montenegro because you've established you didn't fight there, but different places around the globe? Can you remember a young Claressa Shields and a young Savannah Marshall? And do you think about some of those trips, all those major tournaments that you're at in all those obscure places when before you guys were superstars? Yeah, that's the truth, isn't it? Fighting over the breakfast, literally. Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, no, I definitely do. We spend our whole amateur career, I guess, together, going to these World Championships together. And I was actually there when Savannah beat Claressa
in China.
In China in those World Championships, and I remember it being a big shock because Claressa Shields at the time was this big name coming up, and everyone was excited to see her. And it was at the time it was a big surprise.
Massive surprise, yeah.
Yeah, so Savannah actually beat her, but Claressa from then on just went, absolutely, amazing fighter.
What a 10 years we've had in women's boxing. Seriously, what a 10 years we've had from that Olympic year through to where we are now.
Yeah, I don't think we'd ever would have imagined it 10 years ago that we'd be sitting here today speaking about so many huge fights in women's boxing this year between myself and Amanda Serrano, Claressa Shields and Savannah Marshall, Alicia Baumgardner and Michaela Mayer. Just amazing fights across the board. And I think the biggest fights this year have actually been female fights.
Without a doubt, untouchable.
Yeah.
And even the good domestic ones and ones that are intriguing have been women's. Yeah. Katie, it's an absolute pleasure and a delight always to speak to you. I don't ever like to outstay my welcome. That means I can invite myself back.
Yeah, exactly. Anytime, Steve.
Shout out to your mum for me. Your mum did a brilliant interview of us in New York after the fight on the Sunday morning. Yeah. She was in the lobby, and I went over and she came over and she did a phenomenal. She was just she was flying.
Yeah. My mum's a great talker. Much better than me.
Who cares, man? Katie, thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks so much, Steve.
No, thanks, Katie. You. So Katie Taylor there in, a very relaxed form. And I suppose she told us where she goes, which is, it's got none of your business, I'm just private, which I liked. It was very Lennox Lewis. Katie Taylor, 36 years of age now, Barry. A life in boxing. Started boxing when she had to make out she was a boy. That's how long she's been in the game. 21 fights, most of them world title fights, to be perfectly honest with you. And some of them actually unforgettable. The two Delphine Pursoon fights, even the rematch with Natasha Jonas, and of course the Serrano fight. She's been there. She is the pioneer. You were in the room watching and talking to her. What were your impressions? Did you see a woman that's got years in the game, or did you see a woman with one eye on, basically one eye on the slippers and the pipe?
No, I seen, first of all, like every great athlete, without doing anything, you feel to be special when you're around them. Do you know what I mean? She has that aura.
Absolutely.
And she did nothing except just say hello.
Yeah.
But you just thought, I'm around something great here. And it was exciting just to be there listening to you. Not you, but her, certainly.
Okay, I thought I got a little bit of credit. It'd be nice to get a little bit of credit, wouldn't it?
But
I had Katie Taylor smiling for the best part of 15 minutes. You'd think someone would give me credit for that. She was smiling, joking, talking. Could have done an hour. She was brilliant.
She can blag it with the best of them.
Katie Taylor and blagging. Never happening, brother.
But she feels, it seemed obvious that she feels that she still has so much more to do.
And learning to do.
I can't see how she thinks she has more to do. She's done all that can be done, you would feel. But that's the sign of, again, another sign of a great athlete, where it's just not good enough being a pioneer. It's just not good enough being a multiple world champion. It's, I need to do more. We've seen it the other week with Christian Shields. Just nothing's enough.
Yeah.
Being a unified champion in different weights is still not enough. I want to do more. I want to fill an O2. She wants to fill a Croke Park now, because the Madison Square Gardens was great. Yeah. But I want that feeling again. Well, I understand that.
That Serrano fight was getting closer and closer. When she talked about it in April, as she left the ring, that wasn't a joke or a bit of hype. That fight was being planned.
Yeah.
That fight, a couple of things got in the way, but hand on heart, that fight's close. And she's still fancy, you can tell.
And I said to her, didn't I, that atmosphere, it was a great fight, and one of the best fights, not the best fight I've been around, but one of the best fights I've been sat ringside too. But it was possibly, and I still think, maybe the best atmosphere I've ever encountered. Yeah. And the most unique atmosphere for a huge fight, because, and I've said this before, you go to a Joshua fight, it's 90% Joshua fans. Fury, the same with Fury. This and Canelo, the same with Canelo. It's all there. They're the A side.
Trinidad at the Garden. All Trinidad, yeah.
It's always the A side selling 90% of the tickets.
That's a great point.
But this time, at the weigh-in, we said, remember at the weigh-in? At the weigh-in, we were like, the Puerto Ricans going to do the Irish for noise. And imagine anyone doing the Irish for noise.
The Irish are upset with losing the weigh-in.
They won the battle there, but on the night, as vocal as they were, the Puerto Ricans, the Irish came out.
Yeah, they won then.
But it was still an evenly, they were still sort of like 55 to 45 crowd there. And that's, having a split like that in a huge fight is a unique a situation of its own. I'd never experienced anything like it. It was great. But I thought after those two wars with Pursoon, that they were miles on the clock that you can't get back.
Yeah.
And
especially the first one, Barry.
And they had the feeling, the Serrano fight had the feeling that this is the last great performance from a great fighter. The ring won't look like this is to her. I'm soaking all this in, because I'm not coming back from this. This is my last one. This is a great fight. It was a great to finish. What a way to finish. Yeah. Madison Square Gardens, an all-time war.
But that's clearly not how she's thinking.
No.
That's clearly not how she's thinking. She's thinking, no, that was great. I want to get more. No, that was good, but I can be better.
And that's the intrigue for this fight, because the girl she's up against is decent, undefeated, and I've watched her. She's not a bad stylist, but nothing compared to Katie Taylor's ability or who she's been up against in the past. But we've seen it, how many times we've seen it, time and time again, when you have great fighters go on one fight too long, and they think, and training's gone great, but they get in the ring and they're flat. Yeah. And that's the only way she gets beat, I think, on Saturday. I know, certainly, I don't want her to get to that, and the fight was always the last to know. Yeah. But the way she lives her life, how crisp and clean she lives outside of the ring.
That's why I asked her those questions about what she was doing. I was only half joking. I mean, I wanted to get an idea.
She was almost embarrassed that she lives the right life.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
It's like she wanted to tell a small fib and say she lives in so mad. No, she doesn't. She doesn't hire speedboats in Saint Tropez.
But listen,
thank God.
We try to think logically about how long you go in your careers. But when you talk about great fighters, great athletes, great people, I think logic almost doesn't apply to them. She might go on forever, Steve. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. I didn't think she had that Serrano fight in her. And she pulled out a performance of the ages.
Well, I don't think any of us thought it would be that intense and that serious. I mean, even, that's what she said. She said I think it exceeded expectations, and it did. That's why I asked her that question about when did you realise. Well, she doesn't. She just gets in the zone. She was there, and she was going. And what she's done, Katie, is that she's occupied that bit of moral high ground all along. Remember, she was the woman in 2010 when AIBA, who ran amateur boxing and Olympic boxing, when they said no more shorts for women, mini skirts only, like the netball skirt. And she said no. She said our morals are higher. Our morals are higher than your standards, or something like that. It was a real scathing, and she was the number one woman at that point. And so they bowed down and they stuck with shorts. It's an option, but they stuck with shorts. So she's been in a privileged position for a long time.
We look at spaces of times where women's boxing, we talk in the UK, obviously, Jane Couch, she what she had to do to get women's boxing, even allowed is tremendous. And Anna Wolf and Layla Ali and so many others who've Chrissy Martin, who've paved the way. And then we sort of go to the Olympics, don't we? That 2012, 2012 Olympics, that sort of like was opened the door for women's boxing, you feel. This 2022 might be the year that people look back on in 50 years' time and say, this is when women's boxing started. Because we've had, like as Katie said, the two biggest fights, two biggest shows, two biggest events of the year, really, have been hers in Madison Square Garden against Amanda Serrano, and that brilliant show we had on the other week against Clarissa Shields and Savannah Marshall.
And let me just put it in a context. So obviously we had Serrano, we had Katie Taylor, then we had Shields and Marshall, then we had Michaela Mayer and Baumgartner. Coming up, we've got light welterweight world champion Chantel Cameron against welterweight world champion Jessica McCaskill, just buried. So to get those 4 fights in a year's going something. Then on the domestic stage, whether they've been as good as those fights is irrelevant. The fact is they've been they've carried weight. Natasha Jonas's 2 fights, jumping up 20 odd pounds and winning a couple of light middleweight versions, fighting again, defending the title again later in the month. That ridiculous thing that Terry Harper did, moving up against Hannah Rankin. These are all intriguing stuff. These people are getting the fights done. And we're going to talk briefly in a moment about Spence and Crawford, okay, the welterweights who aren't fighting each other. Here's the thing. Well, you know the answer because you're smart. 4 years and 3 months they've been unbeaten world welterweight champions. 4 years and 3 months they've shared. We've never had this before. This has never happened. It's a disgrace.
It is a disgrace. But all these women fights you talk about, that's great. But I think what's important about this year, why I think it's a real landmark for women's boxing, is that they've headlined huge events.
Yeah, great point, bro.
Not just
buried on a man's
live
undercard.
Events, and everyone's walked away not saying that was a good women's fight. That was a good fight for women. Know what people are like.
Yeah.
It was just what a night.
Yeah.
What a night that was.
Yeah.
What a fight that was. And we've had that. When we like New York, we were walking around New York. We were buzzing. It was like when we did Canelo Golovkin.
No, it was. Yeah. It was a part.
Did we just witness that? And that's what it was like. And the same for Shields and Marshall the other week. I watched that on TV, and I'm in my and I was sure I could have went. And I didn't go because I was lazy, and I regret it so much.
You should have gone. I'll tell you for why, because you mentioned at the top there when we started talking about how great the atmosphere was in Madison Square Garden, 18,500. We had 19 and a bit thousand at the O2, and it was the same type of atmosphere. Barry, it was the same type of carnival fight, good night. It was a really interesting thing. Now, so obviously Savannah Marshall had more fans there naturally, but the Baumgartner and Mayer fight, which had got a lot of publicity because of the hate and the kicking and the shouting and the screaming. I mean, rightly so. They really disliked each other. It was quite genius, and it was genuine. And that fight, that atmosphere, it was a special night you missed there. Let me just point this out. So, Katie Taylor defends her 4 lightweight titles, I think, for the 7th time. 4 belts defending for the 7th time. That's on Saturday at Wembley, and against the unbeaten Argentinian Karen Elizabeth Carabajal. Now, I just want to throw in one little thing, Brad, before we move on and hear from Frank Warren and Derek Delboy Chisora. Let's just outline what happened at the European Championships in Montenegro, the Women's Championships. So as Katie Taylor said, when she used to go to these events, she'd be the only Irish woman got anywhere near, got a sniff of a medal. They had 7 medals, 3 golds. Kelly Harrington, Amy Broadhurst and Aoife O'Rourke all took gold medals. Now they've won Worlds and Commonwealths where applicable this year. They've had an unbelievable year, those 3. I mean, but if you've got one woman like that a decade, you'd be stunned. It's legendary. 2 silvers and 2 bronzes. That was absolutely sensational. Now, last week, as I mentioned, Baron, I'll hear from you in a second, it was all about Tyson Fury. The would he, wouldn't he? Is he going to fight? Is he not going to fight? Is he going to fight some sort of freak fight against a wrestler or someone from the UFC? Is he going to fight Anthony Joshua? Is he going to do this? Is he going to do that? It went on and on and on. And then it was going to be Manny Child. Then it was Derek Delboy Chisora. Well, finally, last week, it was announced. It was going to be Derek Delboy Chisora. Outdoors, December the 3rd. Yes, outdoors, December the 3rd, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So I went over there to catch up with them, and I grabbed hold of Frank Warren, of course, is an Arsenal fan. And I started by asking him, and I've got to admit, it wasn't pleasant, it wasn't great to say it, but we both had to admit that stadium, well, it's a pretty special place.
Hang on, let's get my garlic out. Let's get my garlic out. Yeah, I've got to say, gritted teeth it is. It's a beautiful place, yeah.
So this fight, Delboy, was always an outsider. Tyson's been talking about him for a few years. He was there. It's an interesting fight because there's two instant reactions. But one reaction that people aren't doing is they aren't looking at the world top 10. Well, Delboy, whether you like it or not, is inside the top 10.
I'm going to waste just a moment of your time. Right, this is where we were. So we were trying to make the Usyk fight for Christmas, but Usyk unfortunately was injured and he won't be ready till February, March, and that will happen provided Tyson gets through. So he's number one. Next one is Anthony Joshua. Well, we know what we did with that, and they admitted yesterday he was never going to be ready. Wish they'd have told us that earlier. One after that is Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder fought last week, and we never had to do a full fight straight away. Andy Ruiz, who's now fighting Wilder for the mandatory. Then you've got Dillian White, who Tyson just beat. Then you've got Joe Joyce, who wouldn't be ready because he only fought recently and he's actually on holiday. Luis Ortiz, we couldn't do anything with him. Joseph Parker, who Joe Joyce beat. And then you go in, and the next one in on the independent rankings is Derek Chisora.
They're the rankings I use, by the way. So, but the only one there is Ortiz, who's too old, too slow, and got comprehensively beaten. But I mean, so I understand that completely, and I completely agree with that. But with Del, the memory of the first two fights. The first fight wasn't a great fight, and the second fight. The one thing people forget about the second fight, that late night. You remember, was a late night. Was that Fury was brilliant that night.
Well, I fancied Chisora going into the fight, and afterwards I said, because it was an eliminator to get the number one spot in the WBO, and after that fight I said he will beat Klitschko. I remember saying that. So I said you will beat him. He was switching. I mean, he boxed out of his skin. But that's Tyson. Listen, let's say how it is. Tyson is head and shoulders above all of them at this moment in time. Above Dereck Chisora, above Anthony Joshua, and I think above Usyk. I think he's head and shoulders above all of them. He's got to fight. If he hadn't had, we planned for him to fight once the Usyk thing went out the window, for him to fight on the 12th of November. Then the Joshua thing came about. So he said he wouldn't be ready until December, so we pushed it back to the 3rd of December. And as we all know, and as Frank Smith confirmed yesterday, they weren't going to do it. So that's where we are. I can't have him out the ring by the time he fights Usyk, which should probably be in March, for a year with no fight in a year. That's not what it's all about. He needs to fight. Derek Chisora, he's got a big chance here. He's grabbed it with both hands. You know, as you just said, he's ranked in there at number 9. He's the highest available contender. So that's where we are. And he now has an opportunity, like Wallin had an opportunity, and that is about, Tyson. Like Ruiz had an opportunity against Joshua the first time, and nobody fancied him. Anything can happen with heavyweight boxing. Do I think he'll beat Tyson? I've got to be honest. Of course I don't. I don't think anybody beats him at the moment. That's the truth of the matter. But he's fighting. He's got to be busy, and that's where we're at.
And how close were we to not having this fight? Because obviously, I mean, I'm going to use the word wasted. We wasted a long time hoping that Joshua was that fight was going to get done and dusted. So how close were we once that was dead to not having this one?
How close were we?
Yeah. Not having a fight, period.
That we were very close, but I gave him my word I would make a fight for him, and I gave him my word it'd be out on the 3rd of December, and that was it. And he's been training like a Trojan for weeks and weeks and weeks, and at the end of the day, he needs to fight. And we went through all this last year, if you remember. Was it last year or a couple of years ago? You had that problem, and there was a strain on our relationship, to be quite honest, which I was a bit upset about. But that weren't my doing. And anyway, that's history. But I was determined to make this happen, and that's where it is. The other guy who was there, who's not ranked there at all, was Emmanuel Char, former WBA title holder. He was there. But this is where we are, and that's it. That's who's available.
Now, Frank, just before we move on and finish with you, thanks for your time before the press conference starts. You mentioned Usyk, April, May next year. Are those talks advanced, or is that a wish list from your side?
We're advanced for it to take place in December. Before he said he weren't available. The talks, we're pretty much, we're all in a good place. His manager Aegis, his promoter Alex, we get on very well. And everybody wants it to happen. Both fighters want it. There's no politics involved. I think we will. I genuinely believe we'll get it over the line. I think it'll take place late February, March.
And finally, Deontay Wilder had
Fridays, no hiccups on the 3rd.
Now Deontay Wilder returned last week. We were ringside for all 3 of his fantastic fights with Tyson Fury. He did a fantastic knockout of Robert Helenius, and suddenly he's talking about a full fight. Could we ever see a full fight, Fury and Wilder?
If he gets into the mandatory spot, which it looks like he will, and I mean, on the strength of that win last week, who would you fancy out of him and AJ?
We've got to be Wilder favourite, haven't we, surely?
I would think so, big time. I mean, he's so powerful, he's so strong. I mean, as Tyson knows and has been on the other end of it, that tells you all about Tyson's chin and his will to win. You know, he's in the picture. He's big time in the picture. He's in there, and he's got this Ruiz fight. If I think they're doing this Ruiz fight, they're doing it. With the WBC have ordered, then he will get himself into a mandatory spot.
And last question: will we see AJ and Fury one day, Frank? It's been 4 or 5, maybe even 6 years of casual chat. Will we see it one day?
I don't think they fancy it, in my opinion. Well, not in my opinion, I think it's a fact. I don't think they fancy it. And for him to get into that position now, Tyson's come through, hopefully then it's the Usyk fight, and then we've got other things which we would consider in the summer. He's got to fight himself back into contention. And I've got to tell you something, anybody fighting him now, any of those guys in the top 10, they're going to fancy it. Because I tell you, they will fancy it. And I don't think he's as confident as he was. And now he's going to be sorely tested by everybody.
So that's Frank Warren talking to me last week at Tottenham Hotspur's fabulous stadium about the fight on December the 3rd. And before we look at options that he did have, let's hear from the man who is going to be in the opposite corner, Derek Delboy Chisora. It was over 12 years ago that he got knocked out by David Haye. Over 12 years ago. He's been in about 15 fights since then. There's never been... They will not make men like Derek Delboy Chisora going forward. So I got hold of Delboy, and I tried to get some good stuff from him. He wasn't in a great mood, to be perfectly honest with you, but I asked him what he saw when he was standing face to face, eye to eye with Tyson Fury, and he looked in his eyes at the head-to-head.
As a man who's bored, I'm excited. I'm going to beat him.
You've had lots of rounds together in the past.
I'm going to beat him.
Do those rounds matter?
They don't matter, but I'm going to beat him.
What do you? When you say you think he's bored, though? You think that Tyson Fury's bored?
I'm going to beat him. I'm going to beat him. He's bored. I'm going to beat him. Tyson has got this whole complexion of he has to be liked. He has to come in the room, be there. I'm here. Oh yeah. That's great. But he's a man who's suffering from something, but we don't know what it is. So I'm excited about the fight.
So he needs to be loved, and you don't care.
I don't care, man. I don't really care. Love me, hate me, appreciate me. I'm fine with that.
And would there be a case where, you're getting a guy at the right time, a guy that's maybe lacking in a bit of motivation? Is that what you're thinking, Derek?
Don't know. Maybe it's undermined. I don't know. But I'm just be honest with you, man, Steve. I'm excited. The hardest thing in boxing is the first press conference. Before the penny drops, and when the penny drops, then everybody knows exactly where they at and how they're doing it. So I'm excited about this.
And how long have you really thought this fight would happen? I know it's been mentioned on and off for a couple of months. When did you absolutely know it would happen?
I knew when I left Pulev. I was told by somebody who I'm a God-fearing man. Somebody phoned me. He goes, listen, you go fight in December 3rd, and I was fine. And I came back and I went and bought loads of chocolates. Yeah.
That was the last chocolate blowout.
No, not even that. It's funny. I'll tell you. I bought loads of chocolates. And I'm sitting there eating my chocolates. My daughter's Angelina, who's 8 years old, comes to me and goes, Daddy, you're going to get fat. You're going to get a fight soon and you're going to have to start losing weight. Stop eating chocolates. And she runs and goes, Mommy, Daddy's eating chocolates. He's going to get a fight very soon. You need to stop eating chocolates. So you can understand, she already saw how there was a fight coming up. And the box of chocolate is still in my house. I haven't touched it.
And do you think, Derek, finally, that Fury is vulnerable at this stage? Because he's retired, he's come out of retirement, he was made with one guy, that fell out of bed, he went back to retirement. Do you think he's vulnerable, that he's possibly not in the best place?
For now, he's not. But I think on the fight night, he's going to be up for it.
And do you acknowledge him or accept him as a great fighter, Derek?
Yes, he has to go in the books and being the best heavyweight fighter of United Kingdom.
Over the last X amount of years, or are you putting him against Lennox and everybody?
Lennox is number one. He beat the guys in his era, and Lennox, Tyson has beat the guys in his era as well. So I think they'll be at the same time at the top.
So what happens, Derek? December the 3rd, it's cold, but it's full out there. 60, 70,000 people in there. You get in the ring. He's going to have a long ring walk. You would have been in the ring for 5 minutes. What happens once the first bell sounds?
Oh, don't worry. We know exactly what Panama tricks we're going to make on that. We know exactly what we're going to do.
But what about the first bell once that starts? What's going to happen in the fight?
We're going to be pumped up, bro. We're going to be pumped up. We're going to be on it.
So Derek Delboy Chisora there being, well, sometimes it can be that way. It can be difficult. It can be evasive. Other times you can't stop him talking and he just follows you around. Frank Warren, I think a little bit frustrated over the last 3 or 4 months because it's clear, Barry, that the AJ fight was nearly done. And it's clear that Warren at several points and his office at several points in the last 6 or 7 weeks believed it would be made. And then it fell out as, we're not being an after timer. I just didn't. It never felt like a December fight to me, AJ. And they left themselves, and Frank using a set of rankings where you're left with Delboy once you go through the list. There are other fighters out there, but it's a simple thing. Let's not mince our words. It's a simple thing about risk v reward and how much you can get the guy for, and is that guy ready? Because it's all very well saying, well, what about Filip Hrgović? Would Hrgović have come in at short notice for short end money? I don't think he would have. So we can all name fighters.
Yeah, I would say that I think Frank realised and knows. He knows more than us about what how boxing works. Is that it was a fight that he knew he could sell.
Yeah,
but
50,000 sold the first day. But
he also knew he would get flack for it.
Yeah,
and it was inevitable.
But I'd say, but for interrupting you, I don't think he got the flack. Let's put it this way: when you're wandering around, everyone's saying to me, "It's a dreadful fight, this Buncey. I hope you're going to say it." And I'm saying, "Well, you say it first." No one said it. It's not the fight we wanted. We all know that.
But that's just the climate we're in at the moment. Everyone's afraid everyone needs access, don't they? So you don't upset anyone. What I would say about that though is that Chisora did beat Pulev. By the way, I'm saying this in front. I got no interest in this fight. I don't see it as a competitive fight.
Of course, you won't make a penny from this, will you?
I don't see it as a competitive fight. But Chisora did beat Pulev.
Yep.
So if Pulev's top 15, like everyone was saying, then theoretically, there's nothing wrong with Chisora boxing Tyson Fury. I would say that much.
And he pushed Usyk. He was competitive.
I think that's a narrative, right? That's been rammed on our throats now.
I think he won 2 rounds, but he was competitive in all the others.
Yeah, but I know he was, and he always will be when he fancies it. Because all this thing about Chisora always coming to give it, that's not always true throughout his career. Yeah. He has when he's needed to.
Yeah.
But quite often, we've seen many of his fights, or certainly I have, where he's just done nothing.
Well, how about the Fury 2? The second fight, the rematch with Tyson Fury,
at
where
the lower level,
he just wasn't there.
He's won and done nothing. He's just like he kept us in the cop box at 1 o'clock in the morning once when he could have got rid of the guy in a round.
Yeah, I was there.
It might have been Zaban or Love or something like that, one of those sort of guys. And but either way, when he's on form, when he's motivated, he can be a competitive fighter.
Yeah. But
nowhere near the level of Tyson Fury. And they'll go, he's come on, and Fury doesn't dance around like he used to, but he can. He doesn't need to. Certainly against Chisora, this now he's a lot slower than he used to be.
Yeah.
So it's an easy fight for Fury. Yeah. And fair enough, there's no problem with that.
But it becomes an event.
I have a problem that we have to pay extra for it because I'm happy to pay for him in Fury against Wilder again, even, or Fury against Joshua, or Fury against Usyk. I just don't see this one as being a competitive match. So I don't really want to be paying extra for a fight that's perfectly feasible on paper, but not really a competitive match, if we're honest.
Without kicking it, and which we've not done, I think we've got to be realistic here about that, because it is, as you say, if Derek doesn't fight Pulev and Pulev's nominated, you're going, it's not great, but you can't really scream. So it's just that we've got the previous 2 fights. But let me ask you this, about if and literally off the top of your head, who do you think could have been signed, contracted?
You go down those WBC ratings because that's the title he's defending, and I would imagine.
And what's still there? 15.
He's 15. So I think that makes him eligible for a voluntary defence. Yeah. So so nothing's been done wrong. They've done nothing wrong. I'm not trying to dig anyone out for it. I'm just from a consumer's point of view, which is what I am. I'll be watching it. Maybe. No, I will. I say that. Of course, I got to watch it. But that's not a fight that I'm looking forward to. Yeah. I would say that. But it'll be a great event, and they'll set it like that, and that's. But I'm not blaming Frank Warren for this, or even anyone, because Fury's having a fight, he's getting paid for what he feel for nothing. Chisora's getting a chance of a lifetime again and a payday. And maybe he's not warranted to, but he's getting it. And Frank Warren's just going to the letter of the law through the WBC rankings until I pick the guy in the top 15. That's what you asked for, and that's what I'm doing. And it's an easier sell than him boxing one of the other guys.
Hey, listen.
I can't even pronounce their names.
Listen, you're absolutely right. And Dell's got that profile. He's got this. He'll help sell it, and it will sell.
But I would say though, after Chisora's fight against Pulev, which it was a close fight that he just got over the line with, that people were saying, it's time for him to call it a day.
Yes.
But now he's boxing the best fighter on the planet in the heavyweight division.
But here's the thing of our business, right? Our business is full of people who live in reinforced glass houses, right? And the degrees and levels of hypocrisy are such that it shouldn't come as a great shock that Frank Warren calls for Delboy Chisora to never fight again, and then 2 years later he's in a fight for the world title. It shouldn't come as a great shock, because you've got to look at Eddie, some of the contradictions in Eddie, some of the contradictions years ago with Frank Maloney, some of the contradictions that exist with Bob Arum, who famously said when he was challenged by journalists 25 years ago, yes, yesterday I was lying, today I'm telling the truth. So the problem with taking a high horse in our business, okay, is that you would inevitably get caught out. So the people that have been very critical of various promoters over the last few weeks, this last week, haven't been critical about other promoters.
Yes.
Now, that's fine, as long as we all understand what business we're in. So that we all understand, we're going to give him a little bit of we'll let him go on this one, we'll let him slide on this one, we'll stick the boot into him on this one. That's the way it works.
Is that, with boxing being, you want boxing to flourish, and boxers just can't fight hard fight after hard fight.
Thanks.
Because they'll have a 5-year career, and they won't, and they have a 5-year career, and they literally won't be able to spend their money. Absolutely. So I understand that.
Eating through a straw, brother.
But still, let's be realistic and honest about it, and you can't be charging extra for a fight that nobody really wants to see.
Yeah.
Well, but what they'll say though, as Eddie Hearn said in the past, and Frank will be saying it now, if people are paying to watch it, it's a fight that can sell.
Absolutely.
So, and they will sell. That's the truth of it.
Well, they sold 50,000 of the tickets on the following day. By the time this gets broadcast, they might have sold all of them. Now, it's too easy for someone to say, yeah, but they're all going to secondary market. Now, here's the thing. I mean, everyone says that. Frank says that about Eddie's tickets. Eddie says it about Frank's tickets. The venues themselves, you get a mixed message. Everyone's got an insider at the venue because they've all promoted there, and they say, they're all papered. Then someone says they're all sold. It's just it's our business. I mean, I'm just staggered, and I want to find out where this glass is, right? That these greenhouses are built off, because I've got a couple of back windows that I've had smashed about 30 times through playing cricket, tennis, and football in my garden. I want to get some of that. I want to get some of that greenhouse glass on my back windows.
But ultimately, no. I think we all, and us as well, and everybody, the public, we all get worried about the business side. We should worry about the fights. So if it's a fight you want to see, watch it. If you don't watch it. I think ultimately the fights will be, the build-up will be entertaining.
Yeah,
I think at some
unbelievable.
point. And the fights will be, I think, predictable.
It'd be predictable, but I still think listen, I'm going to defend it because I'm going to be working on it for BT. I've got no problem. But at the same time, I'm not going to say it's the fight I want, because it's not the fight I want. It's the fight we've got.
It's the fight no one wanted, to be fair.
Exactly. So we're just going to have to deal with it. Delboy's getting a nice payday. Fury comes out. Warren's argument about Fury needing to have a fight before next year is absolutely valid.
And also, it's another fight where Fury's boxing at home. That's not a bad thing. To see Fury now at 8 o'clock and not 4 o'clock in the morning.
Bingo.
Is something that I'm all for.
Yeah, even if it is outdoors and it's going to be Arctic, but that's neither here nor there. What's wrong with it? It's just a bit of cold. Okay, so that's Fury. That's Delboy, December the 3rd. A couple of bits of news before I let you go, Baron. It's been an absolute pleasure and a delight to get you back here. A couple of fights announced in the last few days. Josh Kelly, Troy Williamson in Newcastle, British light middleweight champion. Troy Williamson is the British champion at that weight. That's on the 2nd of December. I don't know if they're going to invent a belt for this, but it could be the top bad blood belt. I like this fight so much. I've been working on it and I love it.
It's a great fight. It
really is.
It really is. And a fight I didn't think that Josh Kelly would take.
Neither did I.
I think he's at the point of his career. That's a fight that maybe he didn't need. Why would you? Troy Williams on a real roll, and he seems to be the more marketable fighter, maybe. But I think he's maybe now what's happened since the Aviation defeat is that he's had to, maybe, listen, you've got to show some metal now, and this is the fight that he's going to have to. A bit super welterweight as well, even though he needed to move up, but he's up against a big, strong guy who's powerful.
It's a great
fast
fight,
hands. It's a proper British title fight.
No, it is. It's so fast. It's going to be on Channel 5. That can't wait for that December. And also announced in the last couple of days, Dillian Whyte returning to the ring. We last saw him at a building we can see, or I can see right through here. I'm looking at the Wembley Arch. I can actually see the arch. Last time that was back against Fury, lost in the 6th round against Tyson Fury. That was back in April. He's been quiet since then. All sorts of rumours about appeals to the WBC, which a couple of months ago was still going through. He's fighting an unbeaten American called Jermaine Franklin, who's 21-0, and I've had a good look at Franklin's record, and hand on heart, about the best guy on there is the former Czech heavyweight champion. I mean, it's not a great record, but he is young, he is unbeaten, and that makes him dangerous.
And
I guess
it's what you do. You don't get like you don't get a short like former cruiserweight who you can bowl over. You get a big guy who looks the part, has an undefeated record, but on paper really shouldn't really give you any problems. And Dillian Whyte's an exciting fighter. He needs
to have him back in the mix.
He needs a confidence fight to get a win again, I think. But it's all about how much he has left. That's what I would say.
And it looks like I've not spoken to Eddie direct. I will this week during this fight week. It looks like Anthony Joshua's not going to fight this year. That December the 17th date that we've had outlined for him, and possibly December the 3rd against Fury, looks like he won't fight this year. Which was when we left Saudi, Barry, when we lost you on the night. You remember you vanished on the night after the Usyk. I don't know. You literally went in a puff of smoke. Honestly, I thought you'd gone.
I don't think I was in Saudi for 24 hours, Steve.
No. You vanished. It scared me a little bit because I was quite concerned about your disappearance. Richie Woodall we had to go to the airport, and it was just me left alone to interview Anthony Joshua after that fight. So you'd vanished. Hand on heart, I said then, from talking to Joshua, I did a live piece in the radio here in Britain, back to 5 Live breakfast. I said Joshua won't fight this year. It's going to be a long time to get over this mentally and physically. So that's come true. Now moving on, Barry, we've mentioned his name a couple of times today, David Avanesian. We mentioned him there because he beat Josh Kelly a couple of years ago in a real grudge fight, 18 months ago in a real grudge fight, nasty fight and savage ending. David Avanesian, he's lost a few times, but he hasn't lost. He's on an unbeaten sequence since 2018, early 2018. 6 stoppages, European title fights. He's looked terrific. He's actually going to be fighting Terence Crawford, and this is done and dusted. It's on the 10th of December. The American press have been savage. They've savaged this fight because they want to see Crawford against Spence. 4 years and 3 months those two have been champions. But I put it to you that David Avanesian, he's just, okay, there's a couple of other Boots. Ennis is there, Virgil Ortiz is there. They're good as well, don't get me wrong. But I don't know if I've ever known a European fighter be so unbelievably dismissed. Since guys like Frank Bruner went over to fight Tyson. It's outrageous.
I think, being a European 6th defence, a European title, you deserve the opportunity to fight for a world title, you would feel.
It's
and it's a feasible fight that he goes in a huge underdog, because Terence Crawford is absolutely fantastic. But, he goes in there, and I can't say we can win, but he's deserving of the shot.
Absolutely,
and that's how it works. But the reason, and I'm upset about it, because that Crawford-Spence fight, I was looking at the hotels. For November the 19th was the fight was due.
Yeah.
I was looking at flights and hotels.
Wow.
I was going hoping I was going to get some work when I was out there. That's how much I wanted to see that fight. That was we all talk about that. This is like
painting and decorating work, anything. Just like I'm taking my kits.
Yeah,
I've got my electrician tools. I've got my lecky tools back out. I'm gonna do a few days' work.
I've done the bins, haven't I? As well. There's so many things I can do. I'm multi-talented.
Yeah, I've cleaned windows. You know what? You know my gig, son. I've driven taxis. I haven't even got a license. Go figure that one.
But you have got the best brain around London for knowledge. The knowledge for you for traffic's unbelievable. But I would say though is that that fight was made, and this was the Leonard Hearns of our day.
At last,
Leonard Hearns of our day, but not in their 20s, in their 30s. So that's not. If they fight next year, Crawford's 35, and Spence is 33. Or something like that. It's like this is not in the peak of their careers.
So Leonard and Hearns first time round combined age was probably about 47 or something.
And their combined age 21, 23.
Exactly.
Yes.
So 44, and their combined age is going to be 68.
It's ridiculous. And And it's what you want out of the sport. You're chasing the money. Just Dan Raphael, no, be fair to him, he said something like that. If you just want the money, just say I'm in it for the money, solely for the money.
Absolutely.
And then
tell the truth.
And then that's fine. We know what you're after. But if you're in it for like, I want to be remembered as an all-time great. This is Terence Crawford, directed him, an all-time great. Then you make that fight happen.
Yeah.
Because that's a career-defining fight, and your name is mentioned forever.
Yeah.
In that, whoever wins that fight.
You know what, Barry? On that, we might leave it. Just tell the truth. That might just be if I was starting a new boxing podcast, it would be called Just Tell the Truth. It'd be very short editions. We'd only do a couple a year, but hey ho, we just tell the truth. Barry, it's been a pleasure and a delight talking to you. And I'm sitting here. I've got the sun coming through the window. The Wembley Arch is there. You know, I convinced people you could fly a helicopter through the arch.
No.
Yeah, during the Tyson Fury fight, I did it on BT. I said, you can fly a helicopter through the arch. And Lennox went to me, can you really, Buncey? I went, no, Lennox, of course you can't fly a helicopter through the arch. You can drive a train through it. That's neither here nor there. It's a bit tricky, the track and all that. But hey-ho, I've seen it done, honestly, one night. So, we heard from Katie Taylor, and she was in great form, and I really mean it, great form, and it's a delight and a privilege to talk to her. I travelled to North London to speak to Frank Warren and Derek Delboy Chisora about the fight on December the 3rd, which is not the fight that we wanted, but you know, I haven't got a real big problem with it. It wouldn't even make my top 25 fights, heavyweight fights I didn't want to see. It really wouldn't, but hey-ho, that's there. And I warned people back in September, that's what I was going to say when it happened. Okay, if everyone else wants to be a trailblazer and end up in court and find themselves banned by promoters and sued by managers, go ahead and do it, because right now there's only one person in British boxing that's ever done that, and that would be me. That's the way I look at it, my friends. Barry, it's been a pleasure. Great to talk over what's going on. We're back over the weekend, or next week. We'll be ringside for Katie Taylor. It's been a pleasure and a delight. Thank you for listening.
Let's get ready to rumble!
5 Live Boxing. We're starting a brand new term on BBC